Hey everyone, happy Tuesday. So we got an official word yesterday that we're going to be out for the rest of April. So I hope to keep these going. There's plenty of stories out there to read, plenty of crimes to solve. So we'll just keep at this and make the best of it, I guess. So um, I got a story for today, a short story, and we'll do some more riddles and another crimes mystery. So I hope you enjoy this one. So my story for today. Oh, does anyone know where I am? I changed my background today. I hope someone knows. In all of your Netflixing that you've done over the past 2 weeks, I hope you've at least stumbled upon the show if you haven't seen it already. So let me know if you know what show it is. And send me a couple quotes or some memes too. It'll brighten my day. So today's short story is called Looking Back. And the author is Guy de Maupassant. This is Julian French, so all my French scholars out there might need to correct me on some of my pronunciation. Now, darlings, said the Comtesse, it's bedtime. The 3 children, 2 girls and a boy, got up, went across to kiss their grandmother. After they went to say goodnight to the curé, who had been dining in the castle, as he always did on Thursdays, Abbé Maudu took the 2 girls on his knee and put his long arms into the black-sleeved cassock around their necks, drawing their heads toward him with a fatherly gesture. He pressed a long, affectionate kiss on each forehead. Then he put them down, and the little things left the room, the boy in front and the girls behind. Are you fond of children, Madame la Curie? Said the Comtesse. Yes, very fond, Madame. The old lady raised her eyes to the priest's face. And don't you ever find it hard living alone? Yes, sometimes. He fell silent, and after a pause he went on. But I was never made for everyday life. What do you know about it? Oh, I know well enough. I was made to be a priest. I followed my vocation. The Comtesse was still looking at him. Well, come, Madame la Curie, tell me about it. Tell me how you made up your mind to renounce all. He's a monsieur. He must be a monsieur. Renounce all that makes the rest of us love life, all that comforts us and consoles us. What decided you not to follow the normal path of marriage and family life? Are you neither a mystic nor a fanatic, neither a killjoy nor a pessimist? Was it something that happened, a great sorrow that made you take this life vow? And Abbé Maudu got up and went to the fire, holding out the heavy shoes of a country priest to the flames. He still seemed to hesitate about answering. He was a tall, white-haired old man who had been the parish priest of Saint Antoine de Rocher and the neighborhood for 20 years. The peasants always said of him, he's a real good sort. He was a good man, kindly, good-tempered, accessible, and above all, generous. He would have divided his cloak like St. Martin. He was ready to laugh and equally ready to cry, like a woman, which lowered his reputation in the eyes of the Dour peasants. The old Comtesse de Seville, who had retired in her castle at Rocher to bring up her grandchildren after the deaths in close succession of her son and daughter-in-law, was very fond of the curé and used to say of him, he's got a good heart. He came every Thursday and spent the evening at the castle, and he and the Comtesse had become close friends with a genuine, open-hearted friendship possible only to the old. They were so much of a mind that they hardly needed to put up their thoughts into words, being both good souls with the simple goodness of unsophisticated, kindly folk. She insisted, now, Monsieur le Curé, it's time for you to make your confession to me. She's pressuring the priest. This is like serious. He repeated, I was not born for ordinary life. Fortunately, I discovered it in time, and I have very often had a cause to know how right I was. My parents, who were wholesale haberdashers at Verdier and quite well off, were very ambitious for me. They sent me to a boarding school very young. People do not realize how unhappy a boy can be at school simply from loneliness and being away from home. The routine life without affection is good for some, but disastrous for others. Children are often more sensitive than people think. And if they are shut up in this way too early, away from those they love, an excessive sensitiveness, which plays havoc on their nerves, may develop and become pathological and dangerous. I hardly played any games, I made no friends, and was violently homesick all the time. I cried in bed at night and was always trying to recall memories of home, trivial memories of little insignificant things and happenings. I could not get out of my mind all that had been left behind me. I gradually became a nervous wreck for whom trifling difficulties assumed the proportions of acute mystery. The result was that I remained morose and self-centered, inhibited and friendless. The process of increasing mental strain went on subconsciously but surely. Children's nerves are easily affected. Great care ought to be taken to avoid any disturbance in their lives until they are practically mature. But who realizes that for some boys at school, an undeserved imposition may cause as much mental anguish as the death of a friend later on? Who really appreciates that something quite trivial may cause in certain immature minds an emotional upset, which may in a very short time inflict incurable damage? He was really having a hard time being at this boarding school as a young guy. This is what happened in my case. Homesickness developed in me to such an extent that my whole life became one long agony. I told no one and said nothing about it. My natural sensitiveness gradually increased till I became pathological, and my mind was one open wound. The slightest touch produced twinges of pain and agonizing repercussions, which did me permanent harm. Happy indeed are those to whom nature has given a thick skin and the armor of stoicism. I reached the age of 16. The fact that everything hurt made me abnormally shy. Knowing I had no defense against the blows of chance or fate, I shrank from all contacts, all advances, all the activities of school life. I was continually on the defensive, as if constantly threatened by some unknown, but always anticipated misfortune. I dared not speak or act in public. I was obsessed with the fact that life was a battle, a frightful struggle in which one receives terrible blows and wounds, not only painful but mortal. Instead of hopes of happiness for the morrow, such as normal people have, I was conscious only of the undefined terror, and I wanted to hide and avoid the struggle in which I was bound to be defeated and killed. When I had finished my studies, I was given 6 months holiday in which to choose my career. A very simple incident suddenly enabled me to understand myself and revealed to me my unhealthy psychological condition. I realized my danger and made up my mind to avoid it. Verdier is a small town in a flat country with woods all around it. My parents' house was on the main street. I now spent my time away from home I had missed for so much now. I wandered over the countryside, daydreaming by myself so that my dreams could develop without interruption. My mother and father, wrapped up in their business and anxious about my future, could talk of nothing but their sales and their careers open to me. They loved me like hard-headed practical people with their head rather than their heart. I lived in the prison of my own thoughts, never free from the terrors or anxiety. Well, one evening after a long day out, I was walking fast in order to not be late home. I saw a dog running at full speed towards me. He was sort of a red spaniel, very thin with long curly ears. He halted 10 yards from me. I stopped too. He began to wag his tail and came slowly toward me with timid movement of his whole body, cowering down, as if begging and moving his head gently from side to side. I spoke to him, then he began to crawl toward me on his belly, looking so humble, so miserable, so appealing that tears came to my eyes. I went toward him, but he ran away. He soon came back, and I knelt down on one knee and spoke kindly to him, enticing him to come closer. At last he was within reach of my hand, and I stroked him very gently, taking great care not to frighten him. He became bolder and gradually stood upright, put his paws on my shoulder, and began to lick my face. He followed me home. This was the first living creature I had ever loved passionately, because he returned my affection. My love for the animal was, no doubt, exaggerated and ridiculous. I had the vague idea that in some way we were brothers, both lost in life, both lonely and defenseless. He never left me. He slept at the foot of my bed in the dining room, in spite of my parents' protests. He came with me on my solitary walks. I often stopped on the edge of a ditch and sat down on the grass. Sam immediately ran to me and lay down on my side or my knee, nosing at my hand to make me stroke him. One day in the end of June, as we were on the road to Saint Pierre de Cheval, I saw the bus from Ravenraw coming. It was traveling fast with the 4 horses in full gallop. It was a yellow body and a black leather tilt over the seats, on top like a cap. The driver was cracking his whip, and a cloud of dust rose under the wheels of the heavy vehicle and drifted away behind. Suddenly, just as it reached me, Sam, perhaps frightened by the noise and wanting to get to me, dashed in front of it. The hoof on one of the horses knocked him over. I saw him roll, somersault, get up, and fall again amidst the forest of legs. The whole bus gave 2 great bumps, and I saw behind it something rather writhing in the dust. He was almost severed in 2. His belly was torn open, and his entrails were hanging out, spouting blood. He tried to get up and walk, but he could only move his forelegs, which scrabbled on the ground. His hindquarters were nearly dead. He was calling pitifully, mad with pain. In a minute or 2, he was dead. I cannot describe my feeling of how much I was affected. I could not leave my room for a month. One evening, my father, who was furious with me for making such a fuss over a tiny thing, cried, "What will you do when you have real sorrow if you lose a wife or children?" In a flash, I began to understand myself. I realized why little everyday troubles assumed catastrophic proportions in my eyes. I saw that I was so constituted that I felt everything over keenly and was hyper-susceptible to painful impressions, which were intensified by my abnormal sensitiveness and the paralyzing fear of life gripped me. I was without physical desires or ambition, so I decided to sacrifice the possibility of happiness to the certainty of suffering. Life is short. I will devote myself to the services of others. I will soothe their sorrows and rejoice in their happiness, I said to myself. As I shall not feel either myself directly, I shall experience these emotions only with diminished intensity. And if you only knew how suffering still tortures me and wrings my heart. But what would have been intolerable agony in my own case has been sublimated into sympathy and pity. I could never have endured the sorrow with which I came into contact every day had I been on my own. I could not have seen a child of my own die without dying myself. And in spite of everything, I still have such undefined subconscious fear of something happening that the sight of the postman coming to my door sends a shiver down my spine, though now I have nothing to fear. The Abbé Mondu fell silent. He was looking into the fire in the great fireplace, as if seeking to read there all the mysteries and secrets of life he might have lived. If he faced suffering more bravely, he went on in a lower voice. I was right. I was not made to live in this world. The Comtesse said nothing. At last, after a long silence, she commented, as for me, if I had not got my grandchildren, I don't think I should have the courage to go on living. The curé got up without another word. As the servants in the kitchen were asleep, she took him herself to the door into the garden and watched his tall, slow, moving shadow in the light of the lantern plunge into the darkness. Then she went back and sat down by the fire and thought of many things that do not occur to the young. So I just want you guys to kind of reflect on that story. I just found it pretty interesting how the one incident he had as a child really impacted him to make these lifelong decisions, and how he felt like he couldn't handle regular normal life and family and children because he wasn't prepared for that. So I don't know, maybe some of you guys related to it in some way. And even this mention about the dog and being able to at least have the dog as a companion, I thought was pretty cool. So hopefully you guys, if there are some things in the past that are kind of holding you back, hopefully this might be working through in this time, and so you can really live your fullest life, no matter what has happened. So kind of a heavy story, but I thought it was kind of interesting and just kind of drew me in. So I hope you got something out of it. So on to a different note. Let's find some riddles. Ooh, like an invisible book. Okay. Some of these I don't get it. Okay, here, let's start with this one. It's school related. Where do you put a very smart hot dog? A very smart hot dog. Where do you put? Guess some guesses? On the honor roll. Honor roll. A smart dog on the honor roll. Yes. How about, let's see. How do you make a horse float? Any of you guys who have horses, I don't know if you've ever taken them to the river, the lake, maybe. How do you make a horse float? Take 2 scoops of ice cream, root beer, and add 1 horse. Look at this lady. Oh, you can't see the picture. Wish you could see the picture. It's pretty funny. All right, so we'll finish up with a mystery. So let's see if you can follow along. Pay attention to the details and see if you can crack this case, okay? All right, this one is called Flying Thief. Dr. J.L. Quicksolve was flying out to Colorado to visit his aunt and uncle. He had been talking to the lady beside him, Miss Petty Thief. I just love these names. For quite some time. When she learned that he was a detective, she was eager to share the story with him. I was so upset after the robbery that I had to take time off and take a vacation, she explained. Tell me about the robbery, Dr. Quicksolve said. I was the only teller on duty at my bank at the time. The thing is, the robbery happened just at the same time as a power failure. A man walked up to my window and handed me a note that said to hand over the money, and he had a gun. I stepped on the silent alarm, but apparently nothing happened because the electricity had gone out, so the man got away. She told the detective. Did they catch the robber? Quicksolve asked. No, he got away. They did get a picture of him on the bank security camera, but the camera just showed my back and the top of his head. It didn't even show me handing over the money, but I could see enough in the video to tell it was the robber. Was the robber someone you had seen before? Dr. Quicksolve asked. No, I'd never seen him before. But I did give a description, Mrs. Pettife said. I bet the thief was about your height, your weight, with your hair and eye color. Am I right? Quicksolve asked her. Why does he suspect her? So why does he think that there was no bank robber and that she actually stole the money from the bank? What do you think? So she had talked about she had to go on a trip just to get away after all the stress of this robbery. She was the only one on duty. There was a power failure. The man had walked up to her window and had given her a note. She set off the alarm, but nothing happened because the electricity had gone out. Let's see what else. Oh, she said there was a picture from the security camera and it showed her back and the top of his head. And they couldn't see enough on the video. So what do you think? How does he know? Ready? Ready? Okay, she said the alarm didn't work because the electricity was off, yet the camera was working. So I'm thinking that the detective is imagining that if the security camera was working, the electricity was on, so then she probably never set off the alarm and just got away with the money on her own. Maybe, who knows, who knows? All right, guys, well, have a good day, and see you tomorrow.